Well, first of all, thank you to Jim Wallace. Thank you to Carrie Ann. Thank you to everybody who invited me here. When Jim asked would I like to come speak here, I jumped at the chance, not only because there's really no other place I would want to be as a history nerd than so close to Lexington and Concord on this day, but there's no group of people that I would rather be with today than the folks from the Gun Owners Action League, because for more than 20 years, I have covered the fight that you all have been in. Every time Jim comes on the show, it's greetings from the Second Amendment battleground state of Massachusetts, and that's exactly what this is. The battle does continue. And, I think that we have a lot in common with those men and women 250 years ago. They didn't want a war. They wanted to be left alone, right? And that ultimately isn't what we want. We want to be left alone. We don't want to have to go petition our government for a redress of our grievances. We don't want to have to go to a listening tour where they won't listen to us. We don't want to have to give up our weekends getting people to sign a petition so that we can put a repeal of an unconstitutional infringement on a fundamental civil right before the voters of Massachusetts. We don't want to do these things. There are so many other things we would want to do with our time. But every one of you in this room has made sacrifices, has said to your family, I can't do this today. You have made financial contributions, you have given your time, you have given your energy for something that is bigger than yourself, that is bigger than all of us in this room. Our fundamental right to keep and bear arms. And it's about, sadly, not only maintaining the liberties that we possess, it is about clawing back those liberties that we have lost, right? And as Carrie Ann said, the men who fought at Lexington and Concord were willing to take a stand to keep their freedoms. And they did this both as individuals and as members of a bigger community, right? April 19th didn't happen in a vacuum. It was 10 years coming. The Stamp Act of 1765, that first push or shove of a free people, and they pushed back, right? They launched a boycott. Maybe Parliament will listen to us. Parliament didn't listen. Well, they did. They just didn't like what the people were saying. And so there was this slow ratcheting up every time the people of Massachusetts would say no. The powers that be would say, oh, yes. And, I think it was 1774, Parliament passed what we call the Intolerable Acts. Well, we have some intolerable acts in Massachusetts now, right? Chapter 135 is pretty, and I'm going to be family friendly because I know we have 12-year-olds here, pretty flippin' intolerable. And yet you all are not tolerating this, right? You are committed to restoring that freedom that the powers that be want to take away. Now, there are some differences, right? In 1775, sure, you had some, royal governors, you had Tories here locally, but the problem existed mainly 3,000 miles away. Today, the problem is closer to home. It's not that Parliament won't listen. It's not that the king won't listen. Sadly, it's that our friends and our neighbors don't want to listen. We might have family members that don't want to listen. We have coworkers who don't want to listen to what we have to say. Instead, they buy into that stereotype of who gun owners are. They buy into that false premise that we can ban our way to safety, that if we only sacrifice our freedoms, security will come out on the other end. And we know that that's not the case. We know that the cause that we are fighting for is just and is true. And in that 10-year period before April 19th, 1775, you had groups like this, right? I mean, I think of the myth of the Minuteman as the rugged individual, the guy who was out plowing his field and somebody came by and alerted him to what was happening at Lexington and Concord, and he, got off the plow and he grabbed his musket and kissed his wife goodbye and marched off. And that happened, but he didn't march alone. I was doing a little bit of research, And I found out that Boxborough did not actually exist as a town in 1775. But there were 21 men from the Boxborough area who, again, set off for Concord, ended up joining up with the Acton militia and coming together as this broader community, right? So whether it was, the Sons of Liberty or the people meeting in the Green Dragon Tavern or the committees of correspondence, which frankly I think bears a shocking resemblance to the grassroots activism that happened all around the state, and you all assembling and gathering these petitions that the Civil Rights Coalition put together, it is a community effort, right? We are fighting for an individual right, but if we only do this as individuals, we lose that right. It's lost. One voice speaking alone is going to get drowned out. And what I think is so amazing about what the Gun Owners Action League does in the Second Amendment battleground state of Massachusetts is that you speak as one with all of your voices. And you make it impossible for them to ignore you, right? We saw some of those headlines out there. I don't think the media wanted to report what you all were doing. I know Governor Healy didn't want the media to report what you were doing. I know Michael Day didn't want the media to cover the reaction from gun owners, the opposition from police chiefs. But again, that movement that put this measure on the ballot to the point that the governor had to declare an emergency for a law that she signed 3 months earlier. And in that same breath, when she declared, this is an emergency, we have to put this law into effect right away, except for the parts that I'm going to suspend for 2 years, right? You forced her to take that hypocritical stand. And whether or not Governor Healy supporters recognize that or acknowledge it, you put her hypocrisy front and center on display. That, I think, is an achievement. Putting the repeal of Chapter 135 on the ballot is an achievement. That is a victory in and of itself. So the spirit of 1775, I think, is alive and well in this room. And I am so honored, again, to be a part of this and to celebrate what you all are doing. Because, Carrie Ann said the speakers here tonight are, Second Amendment champions. You are the Second Amendment champions. I am honored and awed to be in your presence this evening. And I will say, Carrie Ann, there's one other little anecdote that I came across. I'm going to get back to my history nerdness for a second. Because it wasn't just the men of Massachusetts. I didn't know this, but on the afternoon of April 19th in Pepperell, Massachusetts, after the men had marched off with the militia, the women of Pepperell decided to form a militia of their own. Who knows this story? Okay. All right, well, since you're the only one, I'm going to go ahead and tell it. Do you mind? Okay. So the women of Pepperell formed a militia. They elected their own officers. They started patrolling the town with muskets. After night fell, they were guarding a bridge, and a rider came across. His name was Leonard Whiting. As it turns out, he was a Tory. And as it turns out, he had some incriminating papers on his person. And so the good women of Pepperell marched his rear end to the local tavern and held him under guard until the proper authorities, right? Not the authorities that had been the authorities the day before or the week before, the years before, but the proper authorities could come and take Leonard Whiting away. So even back in 1775, this was a fight of the people. It wasn't just a fight of the propertied. It wasn't just a fight of the landed class. It wasn't just a fight of the men or the patriarchy. It was a fight of the people. And again, we see this today, right? There are people in this room who would probably disagree with each other on all kinds of issues. And that's great, because on this issue, we stand together. On this issue, there is no disagreement. And with that unanimity, with that passion, with that activism, and that desire, as Carrie Ann said, not just to preserve the past, not just to be in the present, but to create a future where the next generation has that same freedoms that we have enjoyed, that we are fighting for, that is a cause that is just, that is true. And you all, again, I mean, you're warriors for freedom. And you are using your voice, you are using your feet, you are using your pen. Let's hope to God that that's enough. But I know that you're not going to give up. And you are, again, just like in 1775, you know, the ripples of Lexington and Concord, it took a while for people, like I live in Central Virginia. The man who owned the one-room cabin that became the house that I live in now was a guy named John Flood. And he probably didn't hear about Lexington and Concord for about 6 weeks until after it happened. Word traveled slowly back then, but the word did ripple out. And I'm telling you, what you are doing in Massachusetts is causing ripples all around the country. You are inspiring people. They are taking notice. Some people are alarmed in other anti-gun states because they see how effective you all have been, and it scares the bejeebers out of them. So, again, keep doing what you're doing. You are inspiring, you are effective, and I am so honored, again, to be your guest here tonight. So thank you very much for having me, and thank you for everything you're doing.